Hello, St. Peter's. This has been a full week. It's been a week of transition from one grade to another. It's been a transition of school ending and the summer, a unique summer beginning. There has been loss and grieving. There has been new experiences. There's been new connections made. And so, one of those new experiences and new connections I want to share is that I was able to attend for the first time the Festival of Homiletics, which is a conference and gathering of preachers from across the world, across denominations, across the country, who offer what they have learned, offer their particular skill and wisdom of preaching to other preachers. And it's a chance for us to hone our craft of preaching. And so it's something I'd heard about and, thought to myself, someday I'll attend that. Someday I'll go. And of course, with the pandemic this year, it had to be moved to a virtual platform. And as it moved to a virtual platform, it also moved to being free. And so many more than probably would have been able to were able to attend. And throughout the week, this week, I've been listening to worship services, listening to lectures and interviews and conversation from some of the best preachers in the country. And it's been a really cool experience. And on Tuesday, there was a sermon in particular that was offered by the Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III, who's a pastor in Chicago, Illinois. And the title of his sermon was Living with the Certainty of Uncertainty. Just a little appropriate, right? And his sermon was brilliant. It was clear and concise, and he has this beautiful way of working with words and turning a phrase. And there is one phrase in particular that has stuck with me. And that phrase is mourning, M-O-U-R-N. Morning leads to a new morning, M-O-R-N. And that is a theme that I think we have been trying to embrace at St. Peter's, and one that we will continue to live into. But it's the idea of making space for grief, and in particular, grieving what was, so that we can make space to live into what will be, which in part we know, and in part we don't. But the part that we do know is that coming up, the next few months will look different than what the last few months have been. We're going to experiment with worship. We're going to continue to experiment how to be the church in a digital and physically distanced way. While we long to be together, it is still not safe for us to all be together. And so we will care for all in the best way that we know how. And we will continue to be guided by that phrase that the church is not a building, but the people. And how can we create meaningful connection and experience and intimacy with one another while still being safe? And so the next few months will be a chance for us to try something new, which I believe St. Peter's is something that we actually do very well. It's, I think, almost an identifying mark of our congregation that we are willing to experiment and listen to the Spirit, even and especially when we don't know where the Spirit is leading us. We know how to listen well, and what a gift that is. And so part of how we will be listening and responding is this summer, in a month, I will be on sabbatical. I won't be among you, even virtually, which will be hard and also very needed. And it's also a really beautiful opportunity for all of us to be changed to experience something new, just like we did when Lori was on sabbatical this fall. It was a growing time for everybody, and I think we're all better for it. And so I'm excited to see how we will all change and experience this summer apart. And for each of you, however you engage in how we are experimenting to be the church, whether that's through virtual worship and how that continues to evolve, whether that's through conversation Wednesday evenings, whether that's making connections one-on-one, whatever that looks like. Despite the uncertainty that we are still faced with, I am still hopeful and grounded in that gratitude, that hope is real for our congregation, that so many of us continue, despite our pain, despite our grief, aren't getting stuck there. There's this beautiful moment in our scripture this Sunday from Acts. It's the Ascension of Jesus, which is a wholly bizarre story. You can read what I wrote for worship about that. But there's this moment in the scripture where the disciples are sort of caught just looking up at the sky. And then these sort of angelic-like figures come down and say, what are you doing? What are you doing looking up at the sky? Jesus isn't there anymore. And you've been told what you need to do, so let's get to it. That's how I imagine it in my head. The scripture doesn't exactly say that word for word, but that's the gist. And that's where I feel like we're at. We're at this turning point of what was has gone. It has been lifted up in some way. It is no longer present among us in the way that it was in the physical form of Jesus or otherwise. And our call is still in front of us. Our call to love each other, to be the church, to offer hope to the world, to remind everyone that God's love is real. That job, that task is still in front of us. And we, just like the disciples, have the option and the opportunity to come together, physically distanced in a virtual way, right? But we have a way to move forward together in spirit and offer that message. And just as the disciples did in our scripture, we will turn our gaze from the sky to the path that is in front of us. And we don't know quite where that path will take us. But just like Jesus says, we don't go alone. We go with the Spirit. And just as the disciples did, we go with each other. There's a lot coming up to experiment, to engage. Just next week, on Thursday, we are going to hold our first town hall virtually. So I encourage you all to attend that. Details were sent out earlier this week, and we'll send those out again before Thursday. That will be Thursday the 28th at 7. So I hope you can all come to that. And we'll talk about some of this church continuity plan. We'll talk about the proposed budget for the year to come. We'll talk about the nominating slate for new leadership, which is really exciting. And we'll also celebrate all of the things that we've done this past year, because it's been a lot. We're a busy place. And then on June 14th, we're going to hold our congregational meeting, which we think we have figured out how to vote, how to have conversation. And so that will be exciting. So I hope you can all come to that. Stay tuned for those details. And yeah, there's just a lot. So continue to reach out to each other. Continue to reach out to Lori or I. Lori's on vacation, so wait until Tuesday to reach out to Lori. And your leadership. We are here to serve and listen and be present to you and to our congregation and community. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions or concerns or ideas. Yeah, we are here for you and for each other, and yeah, to go and figure out our way as it comes. So be engaged, be involved, reach out, whether that's to an individual or to a whole group, however the Spirit is calling you. Listen and respond.